Hey, what's up guys, TechTine here, and this is the OnePlus 13R, and this one has been out for a little over 6 months. Actually, I think it's been 7 months now, but basically this is my experience with this phone. The last OnePlus phone that I did a review on was the OnePlus Nord N30 from way back when, but my ideology when it comes to this phone is this. It has a really nice design, great specs, incredible battery life, one of the best that I've used in sort of this price point of a phone, and overall almost perfect to be the complete package, especially for its price point, which starts at $599. So let's have a conversation about this phone. So one of the biggest things that makes this phone more of a premium device is the materials that they've decided to use. So this phone is made out of metal and glass, and basically the rails of the phone are made out of metal and they're squared off, so it does have sort of a modern look. You have your power button and your volume up and down on your right hand side, which are clicky tactile, so you can definitely feel the quality behind these buttons. On the bottom of the phone you do have your USB-C charging port, as well as a microphone, your SIM slot, and your bottom facing speaker. And the USB-C port is capable of charging your phone at an incredibly quick 80 watt of wire charging, which promises 50% in 20 minutes and 100% in about 50 minutes. So it charges at an insanely rate of speed. Now the camera on the back has the same camera design as the flagship OnePlus 13, but it doesn't have all the Hasselblad stuff with it or the marketing behind it. So it is a triple camera setup, which we'll have a conversation about it later on in the video. And it does protrude quite a bit, but a lot of phones nowadays have sort of similar protrusion when it comes to their camera design. And the back has this kind of soft matte finish to it, with the OnePlus logo having this kind of glossy material to it. Also, one of the things that I want to mention is that we don't see this in a lot of phones nowadays, is it does have an IR blaster to control your electronics that do support it. So that's something that I actually have used more than I more than I anticipated. So I've been using this phone as my personal remote pretty much all the time. So yeah, I wish we had that in a lot of phones. Back when Samsung, I think it was like the Galaxy S6, it did have IR blaster. They went away with it. Ever since that day, I haven't seen phones really implement it, but you do have it here. Also, another feature that I wish more Android phones implement is this kind of alert slider, which can take you from silent to ring to vibrate, which is a cool addition that, again, I wish we had more in a lot of more Android phones, but it is what it is. So as far as kind of water protections, this phone does have IP65 dust and water resistant. So it does have decent IP rating. It's not the craziest, so you don't get like IP69 or anything like that. But for the average consumer, this is perfect. So splashes, and even I did dunk it in water a little bit, and it didn't really damage the phone in any way, shape, or form. So keep that in mind. Now, overall, though, from a design perspective, in my opinion, and I've seen that a lot in some reviews, that a lot of people prefer this design over the actual flagship of the OnePlus 13 that has curvature pretty much all around the phone. So the flat squared off design is kind of a classic modern design nowadays. So it does a really nice job in sort of giving us a flagship look without charging us $1,000, $1,200, or $900 or something crazy like that. So that's definitely a thumbs up. The design, while it's not flashy or crazy, it's definitely a really modern look and acceptable design overall. So it checks off that first box of having a really good phone in hand. So the next order of business is this display, and they went above and beyond to giving us flagship quality display. So here are the specs real quick. So it's a 6.78-inch display, 2780 by 1264, so it's a higher display than your standard 1080p display, and it is a LTPO display, AMOLED technology, a billion colors, 120 Hz of high refresh rate, HDR10 plus support, Dolby Vision support, HDR Vivid support, 1600 nits of high peak brightness, but you can actually reach 4500 nits if it needs to. And also the bezels are extremely thin, so you get a 91.2% screen to body ratio and a 450 pixels per inch density. Now, if you were to like, okay, well, if this is such a flagship quality display, where did they get a shortcut? Where did they take a shortcut to give us that $599 price point? Then I'll tell you that they're using the kind of mid-range Corning Gorilla Glass 7i instead of the Victus glass that you'll see in more modern flagships. But one of the things that I kind of want to nitpick on is not the quality of the display as far as resolution and actually using the display, because that is just simply fantastic. It's the best looking display at this price point without a doubt. So don't even try and compare it with any other phone at this price point, as far as I'm concerned at least. Now, again, if I were to nitpick, I would say that this phone does scratch easily, and I guess that's due to the fact that it is using kind of a mid-range glass there. But overall, though, from the display usability, from anything that would require you to use the phone, watching videos, going through social media, and just pretty much anything that would require you to essentially use the phone, the display on here is fantastic by all means. So definitely gets a thumbs up from me. I did hype it up, and I do want to also nitpick a little bit. As far as reflections goes, it doesn't really do a good job in that, but overall, another box checked as far as having the almost perfect smartphone. So the conversation that I want to have now is within the performance itself. So the specs of the phone are the following. So you do get the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor, which is last year's flagship processor, and it is an octa-core. It does have the Adreno 750 GPU, 256GB of base storage, 12GB of RAM. It is upgradable to half a terabyte of storage and 16GB of RAM if you really want to go crazy, but I feel like 256 and 12GB of RAM is a really nice combo to begin with. As far as the performance of this phone, it's fantastic. You also get a stupid large 6,000 milliamp hour battery with the new battery technology that they've implemented here. You don't even see that type of battery specs in flagships nowadays. Galaxy phones for the most part don't do it. iPhones for sure don't do it, and your other flagship phones that are around the US really don't have this much better life. And again, 80 watt of quick fast charging is definitely the real deal. So yeah, best battery for a phone at this price point, best performance for a phone at this price point. Even the competitive for this phone, which is the Galaxy S24 FE, doesn't have this sort of specs. So keep that in mind. I mean, yeah, this phone checks a lot of boxes, which essentially means that for your everyday tasks, as far as your phone app, messaging app, social media, this phone is going to run extremely smooth, no problem, no hiccups. And as far as gamings, and if you want to push this phone even heavier, it does a fantastic job in keeping the thermals cool on this phone. So as far as heating issues, I haven't really had that. Performance issues, slowdowns, I haven't really noticed that from my usage, which is kind of mid-tier usage. So I'm not really intensely playing 3D games all the time or extremely pushing the GPU, but I do use it just like your average consumer would, right? The in-display fingerprint sensor is good for what it does. So it's quick, sometimes accurate, sometimes not, but for the most part it works, right? So out of I would say that it fails basically twice every 10 times you try it. So 8 out of 10 for this fingerprint sensor. And yeah, overall though, performance fantastic. If I do want to nitpick here, is that this phone does not support wireless charging, and I guess that's an area where they did take a shortcut, and a lot of phones at this price point do support wireless charging. But it's forgiven on the fact that it does have a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and it does have 80 watts of wire charging. So in an hour, you can really top this phone off if you really want to. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so the next conversation that I want to have, and by the way, it definitely checks the performance department. Now, the next conversation I want to have is within the camera system of this device. So you do get a triple camera setup. You get a 15 megapixel main sensor with optical image stabilization. You get another 15 megapixel telephoto sensor that provides you 2 times telephoto optical zoom, and you get an 8 megapixel ultra wide 4K video recording at 30 or 60 frames per second, or 1080p at slow motion 240 frames per second. And even the video gives you optical image stabilization. The front facing camera is a 16 megapixel sensor, and it does max out at 1080p with 30 frames per second, and does use the gyro electronic image stabilization for your videos. Now, as far as the taking of pictures and the interface itself is almost kind of an iPhone interface, believe it or not. But it's very quick to transition between your main sensor and your ultra wide and even your telephoto sensor. So that's something that I do want to give a thumbs up to. Even transitioning to your video, which as soon as you do transition to video, it does crop in quite a bit, more than I would like, but not the end of the world. But as far as image quality goes itself, this is where kind of this phone does not really check that box entirely, especially when you compare it to flagship phones. So a lot of times when it comes to taking pictures, what I found is that the image quality is almost, this phone likes to kind of darken the pictures a lot. I don't know if it's that particular day, but I did compare it with other devices like the Moto Edge, and yeah, it just, for whatever reason, it just darkens the pictures. The highlights are missing, and it doesn't pop as much as I would like it to be. Not saying that it takes bad pictures, it does take acceptable pictures for the price. It just does not live up to the par, in my opinion. So that's a category where it does not completely check in the box. So my ultimate conclusion on this device, which I will be comparing it to phones at a similar price point so I can show you guys how this phone stacks up to these other devices, especially the 2025 Moto Edge, which is also a competitor and comes in at a similar price point. Well, $50 cheaper, but essentially in the same price range. Overall though, the OnePlus 13R is an incredible phone, and I do highly recommend it for people who are looking for a mid-tier device but with almost flagship quality from a design to display to performance. Maybe not the camera, but everything else definitely works really well on this device. So overall, if I was personally in the market for an Android phone and I only had $600 to spend, then this is definitely needs to be on top of my list, right? So this checks in pretty much most of the boxes. I would say if there's anything or if there's a flaw in this device, it would be within the camera system, but everything else on this phone is really, really good. So these are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about the OnePlus 13R. Did they accomplish their goal of giving us sort of a flagship killer, or is it just, no, that's not for me? Let me know in the comments below, and I thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.